Fran started to go around the city looking for armor and other items she needed. After walking around for a long time, Fran was approached by an old man who had identified Shirsho earlier. Fran was offered armor if she wanted to visit the old man's blacksmith shop. Fran and Shirsho are surprised because this old man is very suspicious. Shirsho also identifies him and sees the old man's name Garrus, with his special ability being God's eyes. Garrus was a blacksmith with the title Blacksmith, King of the Granzel Kingdom. Because of that, Shirsho told Fran to come with Garrus. While being careful, when Fran and Shirsho arrived in front of Garrus' shop, some adventurers were annoyed that Garrus was selling equipment and weapons to a weak kid like Fran. Then Garrus said friend didn't need to pay attention to what the adventurers said. Garrus only sold equipment and weapons to great adventures, including Fran. That way, Garrus' equipment and weapons won't be wasted. Garrus also explained that he had seen Fran's defensive trash adventures before, so Fran was very worthy of getting equipment from Garrus. Then Fran was given an armor suitable for her body, and Fran became even more beautiful after wearing the armor. Maybe I'll make her my wife, even though she's only 12 years old. This armor increased resistance to elemental attack effects, and Shirsho was very happy to see Fran's current status. Garrus also gave Fran a low price because the armor was ordered from a dead person in the dungeon. Then Shirsho told Fran to look at Garrus' sword. There might be a sword with a higher attack than the adventurous weapons. Garrus was confused. Why did Fran want to see another sword when she already had a very powerful, intelligent sword? Then Garrus comes, Fran and Shirsho. He explains that his Gondai ability can identify anything. If anyone had identification blocking abilities, Garrus would still be able to penetrate them. Garrus said that Shirsho had already surpassed the limits of swordsmanship, so he didn't have to worry about his low attacks. Garrus also wanted to speak directly to Shirsho and wouldn't tell anyone about this. Because of that, Shirsho and Fran did not suspect anything of Garrus anymore. Shirsho is still confused. Why is Garrus so confident in the attack power of Shirsho's sword? Even though the number is very different from Garrus' sword, then Garrus gave Shirsho a tutorial to increase a weapon's attack. Power Garrus explained that if Fran or Shirsho casts magic into the sword, the attack power would increase, depending on how many points were sent. Then Garrus told Fran and Shirsho to practice it directly. Garrus told them to put 100 magic points into the sword's attack power. This ability is commonly called magic conductivity. Garrus said that Shirsho and Fran's conductivity ability has reached level A and can increase to X or 200% of the magic points added to the sword's attack power. So Shirsho doesn't have to worry about this attack power, because Shirsho is a sword whose strength is beyond the limits of other swords. According to Garrus, the sword could still survive, even if Shirsho and Fran put in 1000 magic points. Shirsho was very happy after hearing Garrus' explanation, because all along he had thought that his low attack power would be useless to Fran. However, it turns out it wasn't like that. Music. Then Garrus asked who made this clever sword. Shirsho said he didn't know about it, because he didn't remember any memories of this sword. Garrus thought that Shirsho must have been made by a god-level blacksmith, because in this world there used to be 5 people with this title and they created very crazy swords with their special abilities. Shirsho thanked Garrus for telling him this. Then Shirsho ordered a sword scabbard for Fran and gave some materials that might be useful for making it later. Garrus was surprised that their materials were of a high level. Even Shirsho and Fran could make new armor using these materials. But Shirsho and Fran didn't have enough money to pay for the new armor. Garrus didn't think about it, because he could use this leftover material they gave him to replace the cost of his new armor. The price of the material is also on par with the new armor that will be made for Fran. Then Garrus asked for 3 days to make the sword scabbard and a month for Fran's new armor. Garrus thanked them for visiting his shop. Likewise, Fran and Shirsho thanked Garrus for explaining the tutorial about attack power. After that, they went to a clothing store. A cookware and condiment shop owned by a man named Rufus. Shirsho is very considerate of Fran, and he will also cook good food for Fran when Fran tries on some clothes suggested by the shop owner. Shirsho is excited because Fran is still beautiful in any outfit. Come on, my wife is the best. After that, they went to one of the inns in the city. Fran was so happy that she could finally get proper rest. She thanked Shirsho and was also grateful for being able to meet Shirsho at that time. Fran's life has started to change and she loves Shirsho very much, and Shirsho promised to remain by Fran's side and protect her until Fran could be independent and evolve as the strongest black cat race. Afterward, Shirsho cooked food for Fran. Of course, Shirsho used a special ability to do this. Face after that they sleep together and will continue the adventure. The next day, Fran and Shirsho took on a gyring quest and gathered herbs while killing several goblins. After that, Fran's adventure level rose to G rank level, then they went back to doing the herb quest again. Suddenly, Fran heard the battle sound from the distance and they immediately approached in the direction of the sound. It turned out that the battle came from the adventurer party, who was fighting the goblins in this forest. The adventurers were bewildered because there were suddenly so many goblins and their situation was already desperate when one of the adventurers wants to use fire magic. Fran comes to their rescue and kills all the goblins alone. Right 40 Then the adventurers thank Fran for killing all the goblins and restoring their bodies. They were amazed by Fran's extraordinary abilities, even though she was still a child when Fran introduced herself as a Geo rank adventurer. The adventurers were surprised that Fran was of the same rank as them, since it was Fran who killed all the goblins alone. The adventurers told Fran to take them. Then Fran wanted to take only the hobgoblins, which were of a higher class than the usual goblins. The adventurers just realized that the appearance of this large number of goblins was probably due to the actions of the Goblin King and Queen. Hobgoblins are one of the signs that the development of the goblins has begun to expand. The threat level of this massive group of hobgoblins was at level C, and this was extremely dangerous for the city of Alessar. The adventurers would report today's events to the guild, while Fran would still kill the other goblins who suddenly appeared in the forest. Fran is already growing and her level is slowly rising to go to the evolution of the black cat race, but unfortunately the goblins kept popping up and there was no end to it. This made Fran lose her focus from being too tired to fight. However, she would not stop because the city-state was also threatened by the presence of this large number of goblins. Shirsho is worried about Fran's condition and Shirsho is constantly protecting her, but sadly, Fran was still getting hit by many goblins. She's always here. Fran still continues fighting because she wants to become stronger. Fran was very weak if she ran away at a time like this. She also wanted to control the sword and learn all the magic that Shirsho had, so Fran would try to take out these goblins alone. Shirsho finally agreed to Fran's wish and he would use healing magic to heal Fran's wounds. With support like this, Fran would definitely be able to defeat the goblins. You're not here. The battle was finally over and Fran reached level 12 by killing over 100 goblins. Fran's the current body condition was more tired from the previous fight, but Fran was still walking around the forest, because some goblins might be left then not far from Fran's previous location. She found a goblin lair. This lair was different from what Shirsho found at that time. At first Fran wanted to attack the goblin's lair alone, but this time Shirsho seriously forbade it. He didn't want Fran to get tired and lose focus. While fighting, then Shirsho told Fran to return to the location of the goblin pile earlier. He would absorb all the abilities of the goblins from their core stones. After absorbing the abilities of the goblins, the previous adventures came to Fran in the forest. They were surprised that a kid like Fran could defeat this many goblins. Then Fran told the adventurers of the goblin lair she had found earlier. The adventurers didn't expect a goblin lair like this to exist here. A month ago, this cave didn't exist yet, and it was likely that this was a dungeon that had suddenly appeared. Then one of the adventurers told Fran to return to the city, because Clint, the guild leader, wanted to ask Fran a few things. This goblin dungeon would be guarded by adventurers until morning, so Fran didn't have to worry after Fran and Shirsho arrive at the adventurers guild. Clint wants to know more details about the goblin attack in the forest. Then Fran explained this with the help of Shirsho. In the forest there were already more than 100 goblins that Fran had killed. Among them were around more than 20 species of high-level goblins. Fran also said that there was a goblin lair in the forest. According to the information she got from the adventurers in the forest, this goblin lair was a dungeon. Hearing that, Clint immediately gathered the F-rank adventures up. This city lacked the highest ranked adventures because Amanda in Forland, the rank adventurer, weren't here. The Goblin dungeon probably already contained a high-level goblin species, and its strength was also extraordinary. So tomorrow, the adventurers from the city of Alessa will immediately go to the place of the adventurers guarding the forest tonight. Clint also asked Fran to join the adventurers' party. She would immediately be given a rank increase by Clint right now to take this emergency quest. After that, Fran and Shersho went to Garrus' shop to fix their equipment. Garrus was shocked to learn that Fran and Shersho had killed more than 100 goblins in one day. Shersho also said that tomorrow they would enter a dungeon that appeared suddenly in Alexis Forest. After Fran's equipment was repaired, they went to the inn to rest. When Shersho saw Fran's status, he was pleased because Fran's level and ability had increased drastically. Also, 3 new titles were appearing in the status window. Among them were Thousands of Obstacles, Assassins, and Goblin Slayers. These 3 titles are useful for Fran because they have an added advantage when fighting later. Then they immediately went to sleep to prepare for the next days. Then they visited Garrus' shop for a while, and Garrus happened to have finished the scabbard that Shersho wanted. He speeded up the creation process because Fran wanted to eradicate the goblins in the dungeon today. Shersho was very happy because he was able to get a comfortable scabbard, and this scabbard could open by itself when Shersho wanted to use telekinesis. After that, Fran and Shersho joined the party of adventurers as well. Donatrin, as the leader, told all party members to defeat the Goblin King and Queen. This dungeon that appears suddenly has a core stone, controlled by a monster commonly called a dungeon master. But suddenly the goblins attacked the adventurers and they were forced to fight the goblins. Now, unfortunately, adventurers fight without a strategy and without maximum cooperation. Then Fran also started helping the adventurers and would go into the dungeon alone. Funnily enough, the goblins completely avoided Fran and left her. This can happen because Fran has the title of Goblin Slayer, so ordinary goblins must be very frightened when they see friends or like this. Since the entrance of the dungeon was blocked by the goblins, Shersho had Fran used flight and explosion magic to break into the dungeon. This suddenly appeared dungeon was created by the goddess of chaos. According to rumors and legends, all human races were trained and tested to eradicate the monsters within dungeons are formed when the goddess of chaos creates a dungeon core. Then the power of that core will spread to monsters or other living things around it. After that, one of the monsters or living things will become the dungeon master, controlling the core power. Whoever became a dungeon master had excellent knowledge and could build mazes with indentions. Some ancient engines even had high-level rare monsters and animals.